Hey everyone, welcome back to Drawing One. It's your instructor, Alexa Carabin Kleiner, and today we're going to talk more about blending graphite. 9 techniques for smooth shading. So I've drawn 12 circles in my sketchbook where I'm only going to use 9 of them, and in each one we'll test a new blending method. The goal is to see the unique textures each technique creates, and also to test the capabilities of our material and prepare us for our detailed still life using graphite. Our first method is the blending stump. So we have, I think, this size for our class. They do come in different sizes, and just like if you're a painter, you should always use the appropriate size paintbrush. With these sort of tools, you should use the appropriate size tool. So if you're covering a large area, you should use a larger tool. And if you're covering small and precise areas, you should use the smaller tool. And then how you clean this tool is you take the sandpaper you all received, or if you're not from my class, you can use sandpaper. Get a clean piece. Once the top one's all dirty, you just peel it off, and you can sand off the dirt and grime. I do suggest keeping charcoal blending stumps for charcoal and graphite for graphite, or one end for graphite, one end for charcoal. If you can manage that, that's just a recommendation. So you're slowly blending up and you're laying down that value just like we did in the other videos before we ever touch that blending stump to the paper. Okay, and now I have my sphere with the blending stump, and I feel like I got a pretty smooth gradation between the darkest areas and the lightest areas. It worked pretty nice. There's still a little texture to it, which is fine because we're using graphite, so you're to expect some texture coming through, but it did help blend, so there's a more even gradation and less texture than there was. So that's the blending stump. My next blending source is a Q-tip, and this is the only Q-tip I could find, and it's slightly used. You can also use a cotton swab or anything like this to attempt your blend. So here we go. Okay, and that was my cotton swab, and to be honest with you, I kind of liked the cotton swab better than the blending stick. It kind of had a really soft transfer, and it transferred well, like blending from the midtones into the light, and I really liked it. Okay, I feel like the tissue, maybe if I worked it more, what I don't like about it is it disperses, which could be a texture or like a thing you're going for. Okay, my next method is using my finger. Now, this is considered, I guess, a controversial method because sometimes people say, no, absolutely not. There's oils in your paper. It can change the acidity and the makeup of the paper. And it can affect how you're going to layer over after you blend. So it is a method you can use, and we will try it out and give it a shot. It's more widely used with graphite, or with charcoal, not graphite. And so I don't know if I'm going to recommend this method, but we will try it out. And it's definitely not as effective as the other methods. And I think it's because I can't pinpoint a really hard area on it. It definitely works. We're blending something, but it's not controlled, and I don't think it works very well. So I am not going to recommend. Also, I can tell as I'm drawing, it's harder to layer on top after putting my oils down on top of this. I'm able to a little bit. I think it can be used in a pinch, but you probably want to avoid using your finger because the oils just don't work well with this material. So I'm gonna say probably not recommended, but worth a try. Okay, our next method is using a brush. And what I have to say about brushes is brushes are not all created equally. There's different types of brushes. There's watercolor brushes, there's acrylic brushes, there's oil brushes, there's mixed media brushes, there's makeup brushes. I found this makeup brush. I heard makeup brushes work really well with this technique. So I think I'm going to lean towards this because this might be something you have. Like I have this little broken makeup brush. Maybe you guys have some broken makeup brushes too. I will say, I think this brush here is a very cheap quality brush and the bristles are too flimsy. I think you want something you want a soft brush, like a makeup brush, but you don't want something so long. If you can see, this makeup brush is pretty short. Because then I'll be able to like target in and kind of add some pressure to it. And yeah, that is working really well. Yeah, I like the brush. Ooh, yeah. So, but brushes are not all created equal, so you might have different outcomes. The important thing when you're starting a value project or any project is to open up your sketchbook and try exactly the materials you have. So me saying, oh, a brush works great might not mean your brush works great. So always test it out. And I'm just going with this little makeup brush. And it worked really well. I think it's a really nice, smooth gradation. It's one of my favorites. I also had this one, and this I think would have worked well too, but it's pretty much spent. Again, I have a little control over it because it's the width of my finger. You probably could stick your blending tool in here and target it a little better and get more pressure. And it seems to work pretty well. It's similar to the tissue, the toilet paper I used. It works really well. It really smooths out the texture. But there's little control on it. So what I'm doing is I'm sticking my blending tool in there so I can get a nice sharp target point. So that's my advice with that. Our next one is paper towel, and there's different types of paper towel. So this is going to work differently for all of you. I'm going to put it in my finger. I think if I push my blending stick in there, it's going to break through, but you probably could if you worked carefully. So I'm going to take this paper towel and my finger. And my suggestion is that start dark and then move your way light, working with a soft touch. So our next material used for blending is a kneaded eraser. And the kneaded eraser is such a versatile tool. So what I'm going to do is I laid down my value just as a dark shadow, and I'm going to use my kneaded eraser to pull out and blend outward. So I actually am blending with the kneaded eraser as well as pulling out the highlights and lights of it. And I'm going to see what I can do. And I might go back and forth and add and subtract because there's this push-pull thing that happens in all these different art forms. And so you just don't want to do it and then use the technique. You want to go back and forth, try to pull out more values. You don't just stop, okay? So I'm pulling out my highlights here, which worked really nice, obviously. I mean, the kneaded eraser was made for graphite and charcoal and for doing this. And then I'm going to try to blend these tones by creating like a point with my kneaded eraser. So you're actually changing the shape of your kneaded eraser, and I'm making kind of like a pencil shape. And now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to like really, I'm barely touching it and I'm using it to blend. So I'm going in a circular motion. I'm trying to create a gradation that isn't just light and dark. I'm actually like drawing with the kneaded eraser. If you pin it, put it down and twist it, it pulls out more. Okay, so that's what it is. I like it for a lot of reasons, creating texture, pulling out values, and it can be used for blending. Our next method is using powdered graphite. So it comes powdered and you apply it with a brush, and then you can either apply solely with a brush or you can go back in with a kneaded eraser. Okay, so the powdered graphite is actually really, really nice. It's more akin to painting because obviously you're using a brush, so it is very painterly. It's harder to control. So I wouldn't recommend it for this next assignment we're doing. I think you need a little more experience. But what I like about it is, one, the darker value you're able to achieve, which just might be the kind of powdered graphite I'm using, is different than I was using a B pencil for all of these. And I like that application and that you're able to lightly, you know, find that gradation. But it was harder for me to control because I put it down and then all these dark values went down. And so I had less lights in it. And I lied and I did pull some value out with a kneaded eraser. Now, I would recommend it in combination. So you're using the kneaded eraser, you're using pencils to create clarity in line, and you know, you're combining these methods. So now that we have all 9 samples made, and I highly recommend, I'm not assigning this as a homework, but I highly recommend doing this before you start any project to figure out what combination of methods you're going to use to approach. And honestly, there's a lot more than this. So now that you know you can use a soft cloth, maybe like look around and test out different cloths because they are going to have slightly different effects. Same with erasers. Another method I didn't use is you can use this type of eraser to pull out values and blend as well. So try it with just this, you know, a white standard eraser. Try them all. Try everything you can get your hands on. That's how you become a great artist. But this is just a starting off point. And my conclusions with it is, personally, I really like the brush, but I'm also a painter. So I like brushes. I liked the Q-tip, worked really well. And then the other methods worked. They worked just fine, but they created different texture variations. So it might be appropriate to use a paper towel if you're trying to get a dispersion effect. If you want to leave more texture into your drawing, you might want to stick with a kneaded eraser. The blending stick is a generalized tool and it works okay. I don't think it gives the best finish, but it's what we have to use. So what I would suggest for this next project is you use your blending stick, you use your kneaded eraser, you get some sort of cloth and just have it on hand for specific textures. And you combine these techniques to achieve the value that you're trying to get and also the texture. So doing these swatch tests is very important. And really, any big project you start, you should be testing the wide range of capabilities that you can get out of the materials before you ever touch your final paper. So this is just a really great exercise to do. And it really didn't take that long either. So good luck. I can't wait to see your drawings, and I'll see you guys in class.